All right. This is the Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton, and I'm sitting next to
Philip Lewis.
And today, we're going to talk about what I learned from wearing a continuous glucose monitor for almost 30 days. Some of the takeaways, some things I think we all can apply to our daily battle rhythm that will help us control some of those blood sugar spikes. I'll talk about why I even went down the road of wearing this continuous glucose monitor, what the purpose was, what it does. We'll talk a little bit about insulin, the whole deal. But before we get started, there's one thing we're going to have to do. Mm-hmm. When I came in here, I noticed that we got a new candle. The candle, if you can imagine you were taking a hike in a pumpkin patch and you would enjoy that, then I'd say that this is a pretty strong smell.
Instead, the pumpkins are really big oranges, and they're filled with cinnamon.
Okay, yeah. So use your imagination with that. So now orange cinnamon.
Yeah.
It almost burns the nostril to the point where I lose the sensation in my nose. So what I did, my contribution, before we get started, I'm going to take this right here. It's a cap. We're going to put that right over top of that. We're going to slide him here. This candle, it doesn't even have a name because it's a man candle.
Okay. All right.
It's a man candle. I believe the proper name of it is gray flannel. Just a matte. Oh, wow. I'm already a lot of action. There's a lot going on.
All right. So I'll throw my candle out, 10-4. I'll give it to my grandma or something.
Okay. So let's dive in. Before we get too far down the rabbit hole of the continuous glucose monitor, let's talk about what it does. What it does, it's a patch on it's a little tool that goes. It sticks into your arm, and it's got a little filament that will measure your blood glucose levels, your blood sugar. And you put this little neoprene little sticker on it, and it keeps it. You can shower with it. I can swim with it. I can do whatever. And you almost forget that it's there until you have to take it off, and you got a hairy arm, and then it feels like you're getting the skin pulled.
What about
from your
when
body.
you put it on?
Nothing. Easy.
Nothing?
Easy. If I had another one, I could show you, but it's actually zero pain. Very, very user-friendly. And then what I do, all it does is there's an app on your phone, this Libre link, and I press check glucose. I just hold this under it scans it. It says 80. It tells me
280.
Yeah, 80. Now, so why would you do this? Well, before we talk about why I would do this, I think you need to talk about why would you measure your blood sugar? Well, normally when people are measuring blood sugar, they're diabetics.
Yeah.
And when blood sugar rises, usually from eating food or stress or whatever, the pancreas has to release insulin, causing the body to absorb the glucose and then lowering the blood sugar back to normal. There's two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is you're born with it. It's genetic. You just have it. And it's your body's immune system has attacked the insulin-producing cells. I believe those are called beta cells. And you don't have the ability to produce insulin. So you have an insulin pump. And do you know anybody close to you that has?
Yes, my girlfriend has an insulin pump.
Morgan is? Okay.
Yes. I thought it was a pager the first time we went out. We went out to eat, and she kept checking it during our meal, and I said, "Do you have a pager?" I said, "Is that what I've been contacting you on when we text and stuff?" And she said, "No, that's my insulin pump." And I said, 10-4, first time I ever seen one of those.
Yeah.
I thought she's rocking a pager.
So as her blood glucose rises, the insulin pump releases insulin and brings that blood sugar back down.
Yeah, she kind of tells it what to put in according to what she's eating. She kind of knows now, I guess.
Yep. Now that's type 1. And type 1, they rely on that insulin administration to control it. They actually don't know the cause of type 1 diabetes, other than it's genetic and it's mostly widely recognized as an autoimmune disorder.
And some people don't realize they have it till they're like in their early teens or something like that, right?
Yeah, so
a lot of times.
It's mostly diagnosed in children and young adults, and it's not very common. It's 1.6 million people have type 1 diabetes, and so that's I don't know, it's
a 0.0000 something of the population, probably.
Yeah,
it's really small. It's a lot, but it's still small.
Yeah, it's a small number. Now, type 2 diabetes that's where your lifestyle choices has turned the tables for you. That's when chronic condition that causes high blood sugar levels, and it can be a result of a combination of genetics, poor diet, lack of exercise, and obesity. And I'll give you some stats here that were pretty interesting to me when I was researching this. Roughly 31 million people have type 2 diabetes. 1 in 10. 1 in 10. And I think that number is rising rapidly. 1 in 3 adults are pre-diabetic. 1 in 3. So 1 in 10 are type 2 diabetic. 1 in 3 are pre-diabetic.
The doctor just told my dad he was pre-diabetic. That's why he started to come to see Jess.
Yeah.
And he's already in, I guess, 2-3 months of seeing her. They've dropped 15, 20 pounds or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So when he goes to get his blood work next, I think his A1C would be way lower.
It's awesome. And I think what they would say is a normal fasting blood sugar is less than 100 is in the normal range. You're pre-diabetic between 110 and 126. And I believe a fasting blood sugar of over 126. It's funny because it's not really, the numbers aren't set in stone. So some people say it's 140 and above. Some people say it's 126 and above. But, you should wake up in the morning and your blood sugar should be less than 100. And within 2 hours of your meal, it should be less than 140. So that means you're going to have some spikes based on what you eat, but it should come back down. And if it drops too far, sometimes your body produces too much insulin. It drops too fast, too far, and maybe it gets below 70. Below 70, you start having some problems. So again, that gives you just a snapshot of when you're talking about who this is affecting. It's affecting 1 in 10 Americans. And that's 1 in 10 are type 2 diabetic or type 1 diabetic right now. And then 1 in 3 adults are pre-diabetic. But here's the thing that really struck me with this was 89% of diabetics are overweight. 89%. Yep. This goes back to the whole COVID thing when, we're running around with our hair on fire, and the reality is 80%, 79% of hospitalizations were from overweight folks. What we should have done as a government, as a country, whatever, as in the world, is start giving people tools to become healthy. And if you can start to lower the obesity rate, you can control the rate of diabetes. You can control these pandemics like COVID in a way that we can't do it now, because now what we're doing, we're saying, oh, hey, there's a pandemic, hide from everybody in your house with no exercise, eat whatever you want, maybe get some Krispy Kremes. Don't worry, the liquor store is going to stay open while everybody else is closed. And we're going to incentivize you with terrible food options so we can make it through these 15 months. Yeah. I would love it if there was a way you could measure how many type 2 diabetics were a result of this pandemic.
Like, especially if they were pre-diabetic and then they were put in the house for a year, couldn't do nothing, couldn't work out. They ate like crap. Their stress level went up. They're in the house. They probably ended up being diabetic.
Yes.
I seen a thing the other day. I don't know if it works with It works with most medicines, I would guess. It said if medicine worked, why do you need to refill your prescription?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that makes sense. Like, you can keep taking blood pressure medicine forever and eat like crap, and your blood pressure's okay, but it doesn't fix it. It just kind of hides the symptoms.
I'm very cautious when anyone tells me that they have to be on something for the rest of their life. That's a very interesting statement to make.
There's rare instances, but like most of the time, it's just like,
don't get me wrong.
I don't know.
There are some instances, like you said, that you have to be on some things. I get it. But if you're telling me that I've got to be taking Lialda because of my ulcerative colitis for the next 70 years of my life, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind. Do you know why they want me to take Lialda for the next, well, I might not be alive for 70 years, but
probably 90.
For 40 years. I mean, it's because that prescription was $765 a bottle that lasted me 30 days.
What they call that, your residual income to them.
Yeah.
You did something or whatever, you have something, you just keep coming. That's it. They don't have to do nothing. You're just going to buy it.
Yeah, and sure, your insurance will kick on and cover it once you get your $3,500 deductible. But you're talking about $760 for 30 pills or whatever they were. It was the most ridiculous thing. And so, yeah, I'm with you. These pharmaceutical companies and big pharma, I mean, it's a big problem. So I come back to this and I say, okay, that's just the difference between type 1 and type 2. Type 1, you're born with it. Type 2, it's a result of your lifestyle choices. And usually those choices are with your nutrition and with your lack of exercise or whatever. So that brings me back to this continuous glucose monitor. Before, if I wanted to measure my fasting blood sugar, I'd get this little thing, like the Precision Extra it was called. You'd prick your finger, a little drop of blood would go on this strip, and that strip would be inserted into this little small machine, and it would spit out a number to you.
I've been doing that for my keto thing, and I just don't like pricking the finger. I just don't like it.
What?
I mean, I do it.
Do you have it with you?
No.
Right now, do you have it with you?
No.
Where is it?
It's in my house.
All right. Our next episode, we are going to do Phillips ketone levels, but it's the same concept. Only instead of a ketone strip, it's a measure your blood sugar strip. And you do that. But here's the problem. That is giving you right then. That's it. It's just it's not giving you a continuous picture of what your blood sugar is doing. And there's a lot of smart people, way smarter than me, probably not quite as smart as you, but close.
They're close.
That say that longevity is being linked to a flattened curve with as few spikes in blood sugar as possible. So you want that flat line. What you don't want with your
sugar, not your heart.
Yeah, with your sugar, you get this big spike, and you're going to see this crash. And those peaks and valleys can be a big time problem. And what he says is, make sure I get it right, because Chris Kresser of the Kresser Institute, we've listened to him talk in person a couple times. He's a very, very smart individual. He's actually, I don't know much about, I should have looked up his institute. It's the Chris Kresser Institute, and he's actually training a bunch of, I guess you'd call it holistic doctors that are looking at the root cause of problems versus, hey, let me just prescribe you some medicine and get my 30-second visit with you out of the way so the next person can come in this cattle car. They spend a ton of time, and they actually try and fix people. And listen to him speak a few years ago was very interesting. But he said that prolonged exposure to blood sugar levels over 140 can cause irreversible beta cell. The beta cell is the cells that produce your insulin, beta cell loss. So basically saying the longer you're exposed to those blood sugar levels of over 140, you're permanently damaging those cells' ability to produce insulin long term. But whether you believe that or not, the one consensus across the board with all these doctors are the less our bodies have to regulate blood sugar, the better. And so for me, it was simple. There's a company called Levels, and Levels they were beta testing this continuous glucose monitor. Jess had done this maybe 9 months ago. And she had it was a pretty cool setup. I don't know who she went through for hers, but it was a company that you were assigned a specific doctor that you could talk to. They didn't have it interface very well with an app. They didn't do the user interface very well. It was very, very similar to, I could scan it, she could scan it, and it would download her data, and she could be able to see the curves. But what this Levels team did, they created this product that you could input your food and see how different food combinations, different timing would affect your blood sugar. And so what I want to do now for the last kind of half of this show is give some lessons learned that open my eyes, and some things that I think everybody should be doing every day. The first one we've heard about from numerous people. The vertical diet guys, Stan Efferding, he's the guy that got this thing going, was 10-minute walks. And Jess and I, we go for a walk after every dinner. We walk around our neighborhood. It's about a 15-minute walk. And I will tell you that the difference between, no matter what I eat, if I eat and then go sit down or watch TV or sit in front of my computer, do some work, my blood sugar spike will be pretty aggressive, especially if I'm eating a heavy carbohydrate meal. Now, understand, carbs are what blood sugar is going to spike based on carbohydrate consumption for the most part. Now, stress and sleep and some of these external factors can play a role in that, but you're going to see a different spike if you eat 12 ounces of meat and an avocado versus 1.5 sweet potatoes with a cup of rice and some chicken. But if I had a carbohydrate meal and I went for a walk, that it would blunt my spike. I would say, let's call it 50%. My spike would go from, throughout the day, I'm usually a 95 to a 105 guy. And it would go from 105 to maybe 130 if I had a really heavy carbohydrate meal. If I walked, it would maybe go to 120, 118, 116, have a very, very small spike.
Is that because your body's using it on the walk instead of like having to whatever?
It just helps digestion. It just helps the process. And so now that just reinforced, if nothing else, there's times when the last thing I want to do when I get done eating is it's hot and humid, and go walk.
I usually go to bed at 8.
Yeah, but
I usually lay down.
And here's the thing. I can remember, and I'll use my dad as an example. I can remember as a kid, my old man would eat. He'd be exhausted from work. Mm-hmm. He'd eat and he'd go upstairs, watch the news, and we'd catch him every night sleeping. Yeah. And it's, at the time I was like, gosh, he's just worn out from working. You know what it is? Blood sugar spiked like crazy, crashed
after
with that
the news and stuff, and then he was like, out.
His blood sugar spiked from the food, and then boom, insulin released. It came crashing down, and then he's out. It's the worst thing you could do is lay down and sit down after a meal. So I don't know, maybe 5 months ago, I said, "Hey, Pop, listen, this is what you're gonna do. It's non-negotiable. You're gonna go for a walk after dinner every night, 10 minutes, 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back. I don't care where you go, what you do, get a walk." And he fought me a little bit on it, and then he started to do it. Well, it backfired a little bit because now he FaceTimes me every night. He's walking. And
Getting my walk in, son.
Every night.
Oh.
And I'm laying in bed. It's like 8:15, 8:20, and he's out walking.
He's walking, you're laying down.
Yeah, I'm laying down. Yeah. I said, well, the next thing we got to do, Pop, is we got to eat a little earlier. But you got to pick your poison, It's one thing at a time. But he's going for a walk, and it's incredible the difference that will make. So if you're not somebody, we've talked about this in the podcast before, if you're not somebody that walks after meals, just try it. Just do it. You know what?
Walk around your backyard. You ain't go through the neighborhood.
I'm just telling you, it's one thing if and you're going to say, and people will say, I just don't have the time for it. Okay, well, you got the time to be a type 2 diabetic? Because that's what we're faced with some of these choices. And if we don't make these decisions, and make some hard decisions, you're not going to have any decisions left to make. You're going to be a type 2 diabetic. That number is not going to be 1 in 10. It's going to be 3 in 10. It's going to be 4 in 10. And
at that point, you only have one option.
Yeah. And let me tell you something. It's a lot harder to revert because you cannot cure type 2 diabetes. And it doesn't go away. There's opportunities that you've seen it go in full remission, but you will not see it go away.
Yeah.
It cannot be.
It'll
It cannot
come back
be
if
cured.
you go back to what you were.
Yes.
Yeah.
So once you have that, it's there. You've done enough damage to those beta cells that you're not going to automatically be able to fix that. But it's much more difficult to try and put that in remission than it is to try and stop yourself if you're pre-diabetic or on the borderline of pre-diabetic. Or, someone might say, oh, my fasting is 108. I'm good. 110 is pre-diabetic, but I'm 108. That means you're 2 cookout shakes away from being pre-diabetic if you're not careful.
Probably one. Them things are good.
I've heard. Nate's got this thing where Aggie does strawberry cheesecake and he combines it with something else.
There's a peanut butter one there I ain't had in a while, but
Man, we got to get with Aggie. So anyway, but that's the thing. If you're not careful, this thing is it will not be a 2-year from now problem. It's going to be a 2-week from now problem. And so that's the first one. Walk after your meals. It's that simple. And if nothing else, man, I finish that walk and I feel. You ever leave the dinner table and you're just almost uncomfortably full?
all the time.
First of all, we shouldn't eat until we're uncomfortably full, but we all make that mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the second mistake, we eat till we're uncomfortably full. And what is the most comfortable thing to do when you're uncomfortably full?
Sit down,
Sit
lay down.
and lay
Yeah.
down. So then you do the second worst thing you can do
Yep.
is then lay down. So these things, like we've talked about, they compound. These bad decisions compound to each other, one on top of another. The next one.
Sound like kicking the cat? That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another one.
I just kept going,
Yeah. We're not even getting into that. The next one is the order in which we eat our carbs, or our macronutrients, I should say, proteins, fats, and carbs. If you start your meal with carbs, your blood sugar is going to spike pretty aggressively. If you eat that same meal, but you start it with a protein and fat first, it'll blunt that response.
So like some people have a weird thing I've seen when I go out to eat with people, and they'll have, say they have a burger, fries, and something else. They like to eat one thing at a time until it's gone. So maybe they start with their fries until they're gone, then they start on the burger. They won't just take random bites. So they'll start with the fries, and the next thing you know, I guess that spikes it. Then they go to the burger, but it has a bun on it, and that's still got carbs on it. That's probably not what you do, right?
You don't want to eat
the fatty part.
You want to eat your protein and fats first, or at least a combination of them. But here's the thing: most snacks that people are eating,
it's just
kids,
a carb.
It's usually heavy carbs.
Some old goldfish, Cheez-Its, some good stuff, man. But it's straight carbs.
Straight carbs.
Just straight carbs. Yeah.
Sugar. It's
gummy bears.
Yep. And what I found to be really interesting, what I could do with this with this levels program, is I can take a picture. I can log into this app, take a picture. It'll timestamp the picture of my food. I'll put breakfast, lunch, whatever it might be. And then it'll track for 2 hours. It'll track my blood sugar for that specific food. It'll give me a number associated for that specific food to how my body responded to it.
So that thing's constantly reading, even if you don't scan it. You just scan it
Constantly.
to get some info.
Every 8 hours, I have to scan it just so it will download the 8-hour
info.
window. Yep. But it's constantly, I don't know if it's every 30 seconds or every minute, whatever it might be. But what I did was I started playing with the timing that I ate my food. So once I realized the walking part, I would eat my breakfast before I coach. I would try and time it up and eat right before I was down the floor coaching for an hour, and I would almost exclusively have zero spike, very little spike. On the days that I didn't coach, like today, I would eat and try and do something. I'd make a couple trips downstairs, go check on some things, maybe go out front to the jiu-jitsu studio and see how that build-out's coming, whatever it might be, I would try and stay moving. But then I'd also, and it gives you number 1 to 10, 10 being zero response, 1 being don't ever eat that again, ever.
Okay.
Ever. The lowest I ever got was a 4, and that's like, okay, well, so much for that. But
Do you know what it was?
yeah, it was apples for me have been a really.
Is it a certain kind, like a green apple? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Honey Crisp was probably the worst.
Those things are good.
They're
man.
really
Put
good.
some peanut butter on them too. A little more carbs on there.
Well, yeah, you get a
That
little,
would break it to 0-1 on that one.
So what I did was I started figuring out that if I messed up the order, if I changed the order of the foods that I was eating, so maybe if I got a bad response from my lunch of oatmeal, omelet, and some beef and chicken, well, I usually eat my omelet. I usually eat oatmeal first, then my omelet, then my beef and chicken. If I just reverse the order, eat my beef and chicken first, then my omelet, eat my carb, the oatmeal last, it's a completely different score, a completely different response for me. A very managed response. It was like a 7 or an 8, which means, hey, you're good to eat that whenever you want. And then for me, the later in the day that I have my carbs, the more of a spike I'm going to get. The earlier in the day, the less response I'm going to have to those carbs. I'm not as sensitive. So that was pretty easy because now it's like, okay, well, instead of saving my carbs for the end of the day, I'll double my carbs before noon and just eat less carbs in the afternoon. It's the same amount of food, just different, just different timing. That's an easy change to make. And why not make that change if there's, even if I didn't believe that Chris Kresser was right and that, hey, my blood sugar, it will never stay above 140 that long. It's not that big of a deal. But if I can still eat the exact same thing and it never bumps above 120, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
So it's just a no-brainer when it comes to that. And then what I would call naked carbs, you can't just have carbs. Can you? Yes.
Yeah.
Should you? No. Are there going to be times when it's unavoidable? Absolutely. But for the majority of times that you're eating, don't just have carbs. And pay attention. Just take a peek at the nutrition label every once in a while. Jess she's been really good about this, and unfortunately she's too good at it because whenever I find something I really like, and she does the old, can I see that for a second? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And she does the old,
That's why you like
we're probably never going to have that in the house again. So just pay attention, guys.
She's really nice to me.
Yeah, I noticed. And the last two that we'll talk about are stress and sleep. If I don't know how else I can explain stress and sleep and make people start to believe that this is important. But if you pay attention to how your blood sugar responds when you're in a high stress environment versus a low stress environment, when you're well rested versus sleep deprived, you will never make that mistake again. Your insulin sensitivity, your blood glucose sensitivity, blood sugar sensitivity is going to be drastically higher when you are stressed and sleep deprived. It just is.
Yeah.
And maybe if you invested in one of these blood glucose monitors, people that live this high stress, low sleep environment, they will see right with their own eyes. Because sometimes it takes a in-body scan to look at that piece of paper and to see, gosh, I'm 38% body fat. I need to make a change.
Like Jess told me the first time I got on that thing, she said, man, I forgot what it was. She said, Philip, your body fat percentage is pretty high. She said, you hide it really well. I said, I think she just called me overweight in a nice way. I didn't know how to take it. But yeah, it's interesting to see the graph.
See it, and you're like, okay. And that's what this will do is it will open your eyes. Do I think you need to have the levels? It's not a long term. They have a monthly subscription you can do. I'm not. I have 30 days, and I'm gonna be done with it. I'll learn what I need to learn. Do I think everybody needs to do it? No, I don't. It was $250 or $300 for 30 days. It's expensive. I think it was well worth it for me. Anybody that puts in time to their health and fitness should probably consider it. So if you're somebody that, you put a bunch of time into your health and wellness, it would probably be a good investment. Otherwise, you know what? Just those 3 or 4 things that I told you, maybe you toy with your carbohydrate timing. Maybe it's the safest place for carbs is before and after workout. You're kind of within that 3-hour window of before and after. Early in the morning, go for a walk after every meal. Be as active as I can. I'm not saying go work out after you eat, but just try and do something other than sit down and lay down. And then manage your stress and sleep. That's what you're going to find. But again, if you're not somebody that is super concerned about the types of food you're eating, then I don't think a glucose monitor makes a lot of sense for you. For me, I tested some different carbohydrates to see how my body responded to them. I tested white rice, brown rice, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, apples, bananas, and I got to see how some of those things affected my blood sugar. After all of those things, within 2 hours, I was well below the 140 range, but different foods spiked it. Like brown rice, it basically doesn't do anything to me. I mean, no spike whatsoever. So if I don't enjoy white rice or quinoa any more than I do brown rice, why would I ever consume a rice other than brown rice? If I know that
have you tried jasmine rice?
I haven't. But here's the thing: unless I taste jasmine rice and it's like this most amazing thing in the world,
it doesn't matter.
Brown rice is rice. It's just and I think that's what the problem we run into is. We have become so infatuated with taste and so infatuated with what things
you're eating for pleasure, not for fuel, or not for health or whatever.
And it's tough. I get it. We're the freak shows that, you got to enjoy life. I get it. But what if I told you that if you made some different lifestyle choices, you can add 6 or 7 years onto your life, because you can't draw that out and say, hey, if I eat brown rice instead of whatever, I'm going to add 3 years to my life. Imagine if you could do that. Imagine if you could say, hey, if you stop drinking soda today, you're going to add a decade to your life.
Well, people would be a no-brainer. They would just never even look at it. Yeah.
But because you can't make that connection, people are like, I'm that one person, doesn't affect. Let me tell you something. You prick your finger after a 12-ounce can of Mountain Dew and tell me what happens. Yeah. And when you're at 160 or 170 or 180, then we'll talk. But so it's just, I think it's got to be, we have to make some conscious decisions. And if nothing else, just understand that when you look at obesity and how it's tied to diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and then you look at obesity and you see how that's tied to the most, the biggest, largest pandemic that we've been involved with in our lifetime. At some point, we got to make some tough choices and say, hey, I'm going to listen and I'm going to make some changes. And I hope that some of these people listening will be able to look back and say, okay, cool. I'm gonna implement one of these things. Cool. You're one step closer.
Yeah.
And when you start walking after every meal, then all of a sudden your compliance to maybe get a little more sleep might be better. You might get more quality sleep if you walk after every meal instead of go lay on the couch
with a full stomach and you're just uncomfortable, like you said. Yeah.
So that was my experience with the blood glucose monitor. I think that the Levels team did a great job. I'm not getting paid to advertise for them. I'm sure there's plenty of other continuous glucose monitors out there. I think this is the easiest to understand and the application to use, but that it's worked for me. I highly recommend it. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Next time, tune in. We're going to do ketone measure with.
You just want to prick my finger is all you want to do.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Yep. And we'll have to do a couple different readings to make sure that's accurate.
Okay. One in my neck.
We'll calibrate. Yeah, we'll calibrate the Precision Extra.
Okay.
So it'll be good.
This is awesome.
All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. This is the Built by Vitality podcast.
I won't see you next time.